In this video, we're going to take a look at a blue ink by Diamine, a part of their 150th anniversary series, Tudor Blue. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the Blue Ink playlist, so if you want to see more blues, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. Trying to go towards our in general conversation, I'm working on getting better at this. We have no feather spread, halo sheen. We do get a bunch of shading, like in the extra fine. Quick goes darker, a little lighter, and then works its way darker, darker, darker to very dark at the K. Brown goes darker to lighter. The medium went darker or lighter to darker on the extra fine. Darker to lighter to, it switched back and forth constantly in the word quick. It's gorgeous. Just stop and look at that. The extra fine took 11 seconds to dry. The medium took 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the medium showed more color variation than the extra fine, although I think it looks very good in both of them. And a smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Hero 7035 with a fine nib is inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading anywhere in the writing. Now we do see the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub. We see the medium is a tad bit darker than the extra fine, nowhere near as dark as the sub. We get to see the extra fine dries in 18 seconds and the medium dries in 24 seconds. Scrubby for both shows us no color variation. We're absolutely not getting it, and the smear test for both says you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this very nice pink at the bottom, really pushing its way up, and then a very interesting kind of turquoise at the top. Now, it's a very blue-leaning turquoise, but it's certainly a turquoise. The one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes looks exactly the same. Now, I expect no resistance from this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather spread, halo sheen in any of this, but we do get some spots of shading. Not in the stub, but in the extra fine, we see that quick gets to go from lighter to darker. It's a slight change. Brown goes from darker to lighter. Again, it's a slight change, but it is definitely there. The is certainly darker than everything around it. Not so much in the medium for shading. The extra fine took 13 seconds to dry. The medium took 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both of them don't really show much color variation, but the extra fine is definitely giving us a nice peppering of shade. The smear test, you can recover if you smear while you're writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing. Looking at the highlighter, there's quite a bit of spread and quite a bit of woolliness that has developed with this. Now you can fully read it, which for me, if it's just student notes, I have no problem with seeing that happen. That would be you. I think this is perfectly safe to use in a note-taking situation. Water is starting to break down a great deal of this ink, and you can start to see some of the dots of the Rhodia paper coming through. Pen flush is doing a little bit more than water does. You can see some of the some of the white of the paper coming through. 1/3 bleach solution is completely obliterating it. Now, it only took water to get this out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. We're looking at this to see what kind of tone change we can get for having the yellow background. We're not looking for performance change. See, on the white paper, it shows itself very much as a dark blue. But interestingly, on the yellow paper, we do get a tone change. Now, I don't think it's enough of a tone change towards green to make this a problem in a professional environment. It still looks very much like a very blue-leaning turquoise. Not a blue, but a very blue-leaning turquoise here. So depending on how color accurate the people that you work with are, would depend on if they even notice this to be off. Just something to be aware of for that situation. For the inks tested, the average viscosity is 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Diamine's 150th Anniversary Tudor Blue has a viscosity of 2.34, making this normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity and all that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now, let's take a look at White Line's paper. We do get a bunch of spots that's bleeding heavy into but not through the paper. None of this touches the paper underneath, but all of this means I could not use the back of the paper. It would destroy me. I wouldn't be able to read either side of my notes. So it works very well for what it's doing. It doesn't ruin the next page, which is good. Talking about all of it. Feathering. We get some minor feathering going on in the 1.1, but I don't see it being such a big deal. You look at the Diamine, you see a ton of tiny feathering. We get a little bit of feathering in the medium, like on the K in Quick or the Z in Lazy, but not bad here at all. We get no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 2 seconds to dry with the extra fine, 4 seconds to dry with the medium. Scrubby for both shows us no color variation, and we're not getting it. In the smear test, you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Diamine's Tudor Blue has an average dry time of 17 seconds, making it not just normal, but average. The last writing sample is done on original Crown Mill paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. As our getting used to this general talk about it, we have no feather spread, halo sheen. We do see a little bit of shading going on in the extra fine. Quick looks like it starts lighter, gets darker, where brown goes darker to lighter. I don't see any shading going on in the medium or in the stub. The extra fine took 6 seconds to dry. The medium took 10 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine looks like a little bit of color variation far left to far right. The medium shows none, but we did get some in the extra fine. Now the smear test, you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine's Tudor Blue, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a pink ink again, but this one's from Krishna, and I chose Bauhimia. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Diamine's 150th Anniversary Tudor Blue? There is moments of shading and a definite tone variation by pen. It can be super dark to dark. It's well behaved, but just an uninteresting blue for me, largely because of how dark it is. I go with a different blue. There's too many great blue inks to settle for less than what you consider perfect. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? I didn't care for its super dark blue that got put down with a wet pen. I would suggest going with a drier writing extra fine to really lighten up the tone and allow some of that shading to come through. But again, it just for me comes down to all those blues that are out there making this work its best way possible, given what I can do with it. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Iroshizuku's Fuyu Sayogan, Rigors of Winter.